to our Behind the Label video podcast series. I'm Lowell, I'm with El Gray Photography.
And I'm Jerry with Stone Fences Jewelry.
And today we're in a very special location. Where are we?
We're at Glenn's Creek Distillery.
Yeah, and they're kind of new, I guess this is new, kind of specialized private tasting room.
It is. It's brand new. We were here, last week? And
Last week. We
checked it out. The first time we've been in it. It's nice. It's air conditioned. It's nice. So we're sitting in front of the Old Crow Distillery.
Yep.
And you're joining us for our next segment.
Yeah, this is going to be the start of a whole new, the last time we finished up all the Rippy stuff. So this one we're starting with the Taylor story. We'll kind of explain why we have these bottles behind us here. So the Taylor story is going to be pretty convoluted. I tried to review a little bit earlier. I even tried to review some of your notes. And Jerry is definitely going to be having to guide me through this because it is...
Bourbon history is difficult. But we want to thank David and John for having us out
Absolutely.
here. It's great to be on site. We've been out here rummaging around, taking photos, drone footage, which we'll have on our episodes here. We've done some like on-location shoots, so it's been great that they've had us out here, and they're very entertaining guys.
They are. And for who we're talking about here is David Meyer and John Kimber.
Yeah, they're the co-owners of Glenn's Creek Distilling. Like I said, they bought the Old Crow Distillery, and I guess we should tell them where we're at. We're actually in Frankfurt,
exactly,
Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
Frankfurt, but we're not in Franklin County.
But we're not in Franklin County, right?
No, we're in Woodford County.
Even more confusion to the story.
It is. We're in Woodford County.
Yeah, we're in Woodford County on actual Glenn's Creek. That's the creek that's behind this distillery.
Running behind us.
This is called Glenn's Creek Distillery.
Yeah.
It's got a Frankfurt address, but it's in Woodford County.
It is. It is. So we thank the guys a lot for having us out here. It's kind of cool to do stuff on location.
Yeah.
Not have to go to the studio and do it. So this is the start of our Old Taylor tour. The father of modern bourbon.
Yeah. And he's kind of the guy, I guess, that kind of brought to the forefront and really refined the process.
He did. He was ahead of his time. Definitely ahead of his time.
All right. So let's get kicked into basically the history of. We'll start at this basically kind of at this distillery. So the first I know that I remember reading about was Jim C. Crow, who's actually. That's where the name Crow comes from on this.
Yeah, that's Crow. I mean, that's why the distillery is named Old Crow.
Right.
And it started back, at the old Oscar Pepper distillery. But a little background on Taylor. So, and I feel kind of funky wearing this. So, I brought something to make myself feel a little more Taylor-like.
I thought you were going to have me a present.
No. To make myself feel a little more Taylor-like. So,
there you go. I like that.
So, tap it.
And I know I don't know if you viewers noticed, Jerry now has a beard.
He had a beard, so I had to grow it.
So
I've itched
I like
myself
it.
for days.
I like it.
Itched myself, a lot of days. So Old Taylor, Colonel Taylor, Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor, Colonel by serving, Kentucky Colonel.
Yeah. So is that actual? He was actually like a Kentucky Colonel, or was it more like the Kentucky Colonel, like Colonel Sanders? They just said, "I'm going to decide I'm going to be a Colonel."
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. He did not serve. We'll talk about that here in a second too. What he did do during the Civil War. He was born back in 1832. His dad passed away when he was 5. So he moves to New Orleans. Good place for a young kid to go.
Yeah.
New Orleans to live with his great uncle.
Now he was from here originally.
He was, yes, he sure was. He was from the Lexington, Frankfurt area.
Okay.
So he was from here. So he moves in with his uncle in New Orleans. Pretty famous uncle.
Donald Trump.
Nope.
No.
Nope. One, Zachary Taylor.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, U.S. president. Yeah. His great uncle was Zachary Taylor. Famous for the Mexican-American War. President, and all that. So he lived there in New Orleans with them until, he was a teenager. His great uncle gets, elected president and dies 16 months later in office. So he moves back to Lexington.
Now he was what, 15, 16?
He's about 18, something like that. Yeah, he's born in 32. So this is around 50, 51 when he moved back. Moved in with his uncle, Edmund Haynes Taylor. So that's when he adopted the junior to separate himself from his uncle. So he moves back there, and he marries this lady from Lexington, Fanny Johnson, who's supposed to be the prettiest woman in Central Kentucky, with quotations. So that's why she was known as the prettiest woman in Central Kentucky.
I'm not sure I would tell any woman that she's the prettiest anything, anywhere, and you go, but it's in quotations.
That's right.
Because you might get punched.
That's true. So, he goes into business. He's a banker. He has a lot of business knowledge.
Now, is he wealthy at this point? Is he in the Taylor fortune?
He's got some money, but he's young and he's working toward that. So, he starts a business, banking, goes into banking, actually trades cotton during the Civil War. He never serves in the Civil War, but he trades cotton to both sides, north and south.
That's the best way to make the money.
He knew how to make money.
Yeah.
So he did that. In 1871, he was elected mayor of Frankfort. And he was mayor of Frankfort for 16 years. So he was well known, great at business. That's his first kind of entry into bourbon was actually just down the road a little ways at what's called Woodford Reserve now.
Right.
But back in the day, it was called Old Oscar Pepper Distillery.
Yeah. And when he says down the road, he literally means just down
Just
the
a
road.
few miles down the road, yes.
For anyone that hasn't been here, on this creek behind us, there's this is the original Old Crow Distillery, which is now the Glen Creek Distillery. Jim Beam actually still has some rick houses just outside the
Old Crow rick houses.
Yeah, so they still store some of their stuff there. About 300 yards from here, you have the original Old Taylor Distillery, which is now Castle and Key, and then just up the creek from there, another, I don't know, a couple miles, 2 or 3 miles.
miles there, yeah.
You have the current Woodford Reserve, which then was Roland Graham before that, and
Old Oscar Pepper.
Old Oscar Pepper before that.
Yeah, and he was friends with Oscar Pepper. So when Oscar Pepper passed away, that distillery, Oscar Pepper, started in 1838. So if you take a tour there, that distillery area, the steel area, was actually from 1838. So he started that distillery.
But that means that that distillery was very well established and actually was quite old
It
by
was.
the time
He'd already had Jim Crow.
Colonel, yeah.
James C. Crow.
Yeah, exactly.
As his master distiller. And we'll have a segment on James C. Crow. There's so much you could talk about him. He was also ahead of his time and the standards that he used. So, he got into it when Oscar passed away. That was 1865, so right then.
Now, was this more of a business interest? Like he thought, I can make a lot of money doing this? Or was it more of a passion, do you think, on his part, of where he's like, I really like good whiskey and I'm going to make good whiskey?
I don't know if it was a business interest to start out with, but it became a passion, definitely. So Oscar has a son named James. He's only 15, so he's too young to run the distilleries. So he actually has Colonel Taylor actually appointed as James' guardian. So actually, Colonel Taylor is actually running the Old Oscar Pepper Distillery. Until James gets a little older, then they actually become partners in the distillery. So
I guess later on, then James actually breaks off and goes to Lexington and
later on, actually in the late 1870s, James actually he became overextended financially. He had to sell the distillery, and he ended up having to sell it to Colonel Taylor. Well, Colonel Taylor was kind of like a wheeler dealer. If you've watched previous episodes, like TV Rippy, put a lot of money and stuff. Took down the distillery, rebuilt them. Put a lot of money into them, and he actually became overextended and actually had to sell Old Oscar Pepper Distillery to James Graham and Leopold LeBreau.
so that's how it became. Okay.
Yeah, that's how it became LeBreau.
LeBreau and Graham. Okay.
Yeah. So that was his first foray into bourbon, and actually, in 1866, after he was put as guardian, he actually goes to Europe. Spend a year just checking out their distilling techniques.
I remember you told me the other day when we were out kind of touring the grounds here.
Yeah.
Because on some of the grounds, I noticed even like the spring house here definitely has sort of a European look to the architecture, to the building style and stuff, which is completely different than sort of the later industrial look to a lot of this stuff. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that or.
Yeah. So he went over there and he saw the best of the best over there, and he brought it back with him. So when he eventually goes into distilling on his own, he starts using these techniques that he picks up in Europe.
Now, what specific techniques would be different in the European variety versus what was being done in the United States at that time?
He was copper everything. We'll talk about it too when we get into Buffalo Trace, you know, the OFC distillery.
Yeah, no, they had the old fire copper.
Old fire copper. So he wanted it. He had this, you know, saying that his bourbon touched nothing but copper. It never touched.
And that was because of what he saw in Europe. He
Yes.
thought that was the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Because before that, how was it done? I mean, I guess they just sort of did it in whatever, steel kettle or whatever, I guess.
Whatever, yeah, they could have at the time.
And I can see it. As a matter of fact, that relates back to, again, when we were here last week, we did a little, with David, he was kind enough to kind of show us quite a bit behind the scenes type stuff. And one of the things we found out was, in relation to water, is the iron content of the water, or if any iron gets in. I even tried to sample some.
You tried that.
It was pretty nasty. It basically was some little bit of bourbon that he, I think, put a nail or something in, just to show what copper. It totally ruins the bourbon.
Yeah, what iron does.
Or iron.
What iron does.
So I guess that does make sense in that fashion. So if someone's using, for instance, anything, one piece of iron pipe in the whole system would introduce a lot of disflavor in there. So I can see where that would make sense.
Yeah. So his next big foray, which we'll get to in our next episode, and you actually haven't poured you a drink at all.
Oh, I have not. Yeah.
No, we'll start out here with Old Taylor.
We're going to start out with the Old Taylor.
Old Taylor.
Even though we are at Old Crow.
Yes. Yes.
Again, Old Taylor's just
down the road.
Just down the road. So
And
we're starting with this because this we're basically focusing right now on Colonel Taylor. So we're going to start with.
This is kind of a. If you notice, if you look behind us here, there's actually 2 bourbons with Colonel Taylor's name on it. Each one of the only ones that it actually has.
They're a little different price point.
They are just a little different, yes. This one here.
We'll pour you one here.
This one here, yeah, just a little. And this one here was $23 for the big jug. And it was made by Jim Beam. And it's actually
they own the.
They did, and actually they sold it to Buffalo Trace.
Oh,
So
really?
Buffalo Trace owns this now. When Beam had it, it was a 6-year. It's just 80 proof, so it's a low proof, as low as you can go in bourbon.
Yep.
So, but Buffalo Trace makes it now, along with their premium Colonel H. Taylor.
But it even still says on the bottle, it's bottled by Old Fashioned Copper Distillery. So they're still playing on that.
They are.
On that
They sure are.
apology.
So that's what we'll start with. In our next episode, we'll talk about Taylor's next move into bourbon and he became part of a partnership that actually didn't say his name. He was the company.
For me. Yeah.
Yes, if you want to say Three's company, he was the company.
He was the company.
Yeah. So join us next time.
Next time.